In the 19th century, Somali traders journeyed across the Gulf of Aden to Yemen, seeking new markets and opportunities. They arrived with cargoes of livestock, hides, coffee, and frankincense, hoping to establish profitable trade routes. Their arrival was initially welcomed, as their goods were highly sought after in Yemeni bazaars. However, as their presence grew, Somali traders faced significant challenges rooted in deep-seated cultural and social tensions within Arab society. Somali traders, often coming from a predominantly nomadic and clan-based society, faced a rigidly hierarchical Yemeni culture that valued established lineage and social status. This distinction led to friction between the two groups. Many Yemeni Arabs saw Somalis as outsiders whose customs and language diverged markedly from theirs. Although both groups were predominantly Muslim, differences in religious practices and interpretations only heightened this sense of otherness, as Yemeni society at the time was shaped by its own unique blend of Islamic practices. In addition to cultural resistance, Somali traders faced economic barriers. Some local Yemeni merchants feared that Somali competitors would drive down prices or capture a share of the market traditionally controlled by Arab merchants. Thus, Somalis found it difficult to establish stable networks. Over time, they began to settle in small enclaves within coastal towns like Aden, Mukalla, and Hodeidah, where they built their own support systems. However, these areas became somewhat segregated, with Somali neighborhoods separated from the mainstream Yemeni population. Social integration was challenging. Yemeni society had strict codes around marriage and familial alliances, making it difficult for Somali men to marry into Yemeni families. This barrier further isolated the Somali communities and limited their social mobility. In some cases, Somalis were confined to specific roles within society, finding themselves marginalized in less desirable or lower-paying occupations despite their contribution to the economy. In Yemen, local resistance against foreigners led to stricter controls, and Somali traders were sometimes forced to pay higher taxes or bribes to operate. Even so, the Somali presence continued to grow due to their resilience and strong trading networks, which eventually became crucial for trade between East Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. They began to form connections with marginalized groups within Yemen, such as freed African slaves, creating a coalition that offered some level of community support and cultural affinity. This support network helped Somali traders gain a foothold in Yemen's urban centers, despite persistent societal resistance. By the late 19th century, Somali traders in Yemen had carved out a distinct identity. Although they faced discrimination, they became known as a reliable bridge between the Arabian Peninsula and the African continent. Somali traders laid the groundwork for cultural and economic exchange, enriching Yemeni society with East African goods, customs, and culinary influences. Their resilience against social resistance allowed future generations of Somalis in Yemen to gradually gain greater acceptance, establishing a legacy of cross-cultural exchange that endures in the region to this day.